welcome everybody. This is John Locke from Locking Your Success. We're talking with Jeff Plimpton from OptionVue Systems International, and we are talking about OptionVue 8.12 and beyond. Before we get going here, we would like to remind you that this presentation is for educational purposes only. We're not broker-dealers or financial advisors, and we're not making any specific trade recommendations. Also, please be aware that your risk in trading options is substantial, and be sure you are aware of all your risks prior to placing any trades. Should we present any trades here today, they will be hypothetical computer simulated trades that are believed to be as accurately represented as possible, and be aware that live results may vary. Now that said, welcome Jeff. I'm glad you are here. Let me make you presenter. Here we go. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments about OptionVue, now is the time to speak those. So Jeff, I have given you presenter mode.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, excellent. The first thing I'm going to do, everybody, is just talk about how to bring in pricing data. There's basically 3, maybe 4 choices. What I did was I clicked on the globe in the upper right-hand corner here, and it brought up a live data window. What you see in the live data source right now is QuoteView. That's our pricing data. It comes from a company called Quad. It's not what the majority of our users go to, which many of you are going to know that. Those of you trading with interactive brokers or Thinkorswim can pull in pricing data from those 2 vendors. Of course, we're still compatible with eSignal as well, and there's some eSignal users out there also. Close this. The next thing I wanted to jump to was the quotes display. How do you add symbols to the quotes display? It's a very simple process. I won't spend a lot of time on it. Those of you on a Windows operating system, just highlight about where you want the symbol to go. Hit the insert key on your keyboard, and it'll open up a row. Okay? Type in whatever you want to put in there. Hit enter, and the symbol's in. There's an A at the end of each heading. I always like everything alphabetized. Just click on the A, and it'll alphabetize it. For stocks in particular, if you want subheadings like tech stocks, pharmaceuticals, financial, whatever, again, hit the insert key. This time you'll have to put in a little hash sign, and then just type in whatever you want the heading to be. Hit enter, and now you can put in tech stocks. I used to do this, but I don't trade stocks much anymore, it seems like. So
right. I think most of our users are a little beyond this, Jeff.
Okay, that's why I was asking. You want me to just go beyond this?
Yeah.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
We're usually trading the SPX and the Russell. We're usually doing index options. I guess we have our own unique concerns sometimes with the software and so forth. And they have some questions. So do you want me to throw out questions as they come in, or do you want to just kind of continue on?
I don't know. What do you think? I'd kind of like to just kind of get into the matrix real quick, and then how about a couple questions?
That sounds great. We'll do that.
Okay, let's do that. Okay. And John, I'm somewhat aware of your trading style and what you guys do, not in great detail, but maybe you could guide me a little bit too. But I put in a butterfly, and isn't that most what your M3s and rocks and those are butterflies, correct?
Yeah, most of the stuff's a butterfly in one form or another, sure.
Okay. I'm not going to jump right into the analysis. I wanted to talk about the matrix area a little bit first. Maybe details you guys hadn't picked up. For instance, here's a simple thing. If you start a butterfly and it's at the money, your short leg, sometimes these scroll bars are up here. You can just click over here. It'll always bring up the at the monies. Another thing that people call in about, maybe I don't even know if you ran into this, John. I was here for 9 years. He did this recently, but if you scroll all the way up and you just want to add a strike, scroll up here, right click, it says add strike. Just left click on it. You can quickly add a strike. if you have multiple trades on the SPX of the RUT, and we're not talking about grouping right now, I will get to that, you can just click up here to look at this trade, and if I have something else over here, it'll lock this one out. It'll only look at this one. Is this stuff you guys have gone over before, John?
Well, I know this stuff. I don't know. Some of the users might not. So
Okay.
those are
All
the
right.
little tips there. Yeah.
Just little tips, exactly. Same thing over here, that because we do walkthroughs here, the things we run into. Your
Right.
group's just a little more sophisticated. This eraser, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but it's nice for when you're initially designing the trades. You can clear out the trade column, existing position column. Just keep in mind, if you're clearing the existing position column, you also have to clear the trade log, or it'll pop right back in. So I was going to go into the analysis area and bring up a few things as well. You want to fire a couple of those questions at me before I go into analyze?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, here is how, again, how do you lock that particular column in? And it's just clicking at the top of the column, right?
Right, that's all you got to do. It isolates this column. This is where my butterfly is.
Right. Okay.
But I could have, I don't know if you guys do campaigns, but if you're marching them in, you might want to just isolate one at a time. Again,
Sure.
I'm not talking about grouping, because that's one of the big changes to the software.
Okay.
Anything
yeah,
else
it is.
come up?
And we should probably go over that. Yeah. Well, I just a question, which is a question that I have often too, is when is the data entry delay going to be fixed? And I think what he's referring to is the when you're running like a toss feed, it is very
Yeah, the
difficult.
3-second delay.
Yeah, I mean you can spend.
Right now you're right. You really need to, go on to Thinkorswim and set it for 3 seconds, and keep the symbols to about 125 when you're on Thinkorswim. Mine's on 150, but I actually keep it to about 125. Good question. I have a lot of the most recent notes in front of me. He has not put anything in terms of what's coming up for problem fixes.
Sure.
In terms of pricing data. And I would share it with you guys right away. Doesn't bother me at all.
Right.
What he put in the notes was a little more with the trade ID, which we're going to talk about a little bit because that's kind of his biggest thing right now. And that he's, maybe with your help, John, going to go back a little more with modeling, but he will not override the modeling that's in there. We are not going to go through that again. I know you guys went through it too. No more of that.
That was good if we could avoid that again. Yeah, that would be awesome.
So, I mean, you can always default to the previous model in case he does something with the vertical or horizontal skews that doesn't sit well with you.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah,
okay,
so
I know.
Another question here is, does OptionVue pull historic data from Thinkorswim or just live data?
No, the data, it's running through 6,000 assets on 4 servers and it's coming from QuoteView, not from Quad, not from Thinkorswim or Interactive Brokers.
Okay, super. Let's see, last week I was looking for the April monthly cycle in the Russell, but it was not available. It was available for my broker, but not in OptionVue. I couldn't.
Are we talking about Wednesdays?
It just says last week.
Last week. I can show you very quickly how to add option monthlies or weeklies here, but everything should be available. The only thing we're having trouble with are those Wednesdays, particularly on the E-mini, and he is working on that.
Right, he was talking on the Russell, I think, anyway. But
well, same routine. Just click on Define, Options. If it's a weekly, you do have to put the W in, but just type in the month that it's a weekly and the date.
It was the regular monthly. Apparently it was the regular monthly that wasn't coming up. I guess it's working now.
Okay.
Paper would show up, but no data would come in.
Yeah, the dot dot s dot 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 r dot dot. Um, please, uh, that sounds like something. If you continue to have a problem with it, please call in, and we'll have Ken Dole or Dave Johnson get on it and help you. Don't
Okay.
struggle or be frustrated. You guys have gone through enough of that. That's for sure. Um,
Right. I think
any,
communication's a
any,
big thing. If you're having challenges, to get in there with them. So.
right. Usually, if they get in with you, I'm sure you can imagine we get a lot of tech calls, right? Software company. We have emails already formatted for importing, exporting, all kinds of issues. We can go right in there and add a monthly quickly. If you, please don't be frustrated. Um,
Hmm.
I trade too. I empathize. I don't want to be frustrated either. Um, right? None of us do.
Right.
I was going to go into these buttons here, but I think you guys are beyond all this, I'm guessing.
For
You
the
know how
most
to
part, I
set
think so. Yeah.
everything. You know how to
Hmm.
format everything,
Yeah.
right? Can I just skip that?
I believe you
In
could.
terms, I'm sorry.
I believe you could skip that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to need your guidance here, John, but you're very helpful. I appreciate it.
Okay. That's great.
I'm also not, I guess I won't spend a lot of time on the analysis window. Some of these things that have been added, you guys are probably aware of. But one thing I would like to say, don't forget in the lower right-hand corner here, these buttons that snap the T plus zero line back onto the gram dot. Remember the gram dot tells you where the trade is in the present. This little button down here will get the T plus zero line aligned with that. And don't forget the detailed analysis. I even find myself forgetting it. There's a couple nice things. I'm sure you can see how your trade's doing in the matrix, but it's nice to see the daily theta on a trade, and it does it quickly and automatically and tells you in real dollars. And you can manipulate information here in the detailed analysis. So that was one thing I thought I would bring up with you guys. When people trade for a while and they just get used to coming in, oh, well, look, my trade's fine. I'm underneath the calendar here, or underneath the tent. I'm cool. They kind of forget about some of these things. So I thought maybe that would be something that would help. I'm guessing you guys are used to using the wand to see profit and loss and see
Yes.
what the Greeks are doing at different points on the x-axis. You know these hatched lines are break-even points for
Hmm.
whatever line is highlighted, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
You can manipulate volatility up here manually if you choose to.
Hmm.
This is a negative Vega trade, so if it's going in your favor, you can see what a couple percent drop will do to the step-through dates. Boy, this is fast, John. You guys already know your stuff. So break-even points. Are you aware you can set objectives in the software?
Objectives in what way?
Profit, a stop. Maybe that would be something to bring up real quick. Here, I'll
Yeah,
do
we can bring
that.
up
Let
that real
me,
quick. And of course, we have a lot of questions too, so we can do that. Yep.
okay. I'm going to convert this trade. You all know it goes into the trade log. This is what we're going to talk about a little later here, this trade ID and this reconcile field.
Sure.
But I just want to show you kind of quick that you can right click in here and you can set an alert for yourself, and it'll even display in your analysis whatever your triggers are.
Okay.
Have you seen this before, John?
No, I have not used this.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to set up a gain, I don't know, let's just say 10%, and you want to set up a loss, let's say a percent loss, maybe 15%, depends what your risk tolerance is. You do have to set up an action. It'll send you an email if you want. it'll send up a flag. It has a, I think, kind of an obnoxious sound it'll send off to if you want. Okay.
Now, I would imagine the software has to be up and running in order for those alerts to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to have data so that it knows, right?
Right. So you'd have to have the toss feed all operational and everything.
Exactly. Everything's got to be going. But it's during the trading day. You're probably sitting there anyway, right? All right. And bring up the analyze again. And it'll put in lines for you. This was something one did pretty easily. This obviously a little more elaborate, but it still does the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Okay.
It's good to know. Yep.
Yeah. Somebody might want to use it. You never know.
Sure.
The biggest thing I wanted to bring up, and it sounds like, John, you had it in mind too, was this new trade ID.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your theories are on campaigns, but almost everyone who's traded options for a while does a campaign occasionally, meaning starting with one calendar and they just, or it's not calendar, could be a calendar, but in this case, butterflies. Is that part of your strategy, like one right after another maybe? Or?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what context you mean that, but we will. You mean you go into a different expiration month?
Mm-hmm. Some people it could be weeklies too, but some might do it.
Yeah, or another expiration week, right? Yeah.
And some this will take up to. Some people might. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The trade ID will take up to 40 characters. I mean, I was just thinking. I've only used it a couple times. I still am in the habit of the recon field, but campaign 1, campaign 2, something like that. If you use this trade ID, it'll work the same as assigning an A to this calendar or to this butterfly, and then when you add a leg, giving that an A. For instance, if you're bringing up one side of the butterfly with a call, right, you have to add the letter A to it. So if I did that over here, I messed this up by scrolling up. It would depend on our delta situation. This certainly wouldn't fix it, but if I decide to add some calls to pull this up, I'm sure, at least I'm guessing you guys do stuff like that.
Sure.
When I convert this, if I don't assign a trade ID or a password, it's going to think it's a separate trade, right? So I would just add the campaign ID to the call, and it would be grouped together. Or if you guys, like me, change comes hard for me sometimes, you can always put in an A or a 1 or whatever you want here.
Right. Now, do we have more options? Like, I think there's only, like 27 or like 30 options you can use in the R column, because you can use 0 through 9 and A through Z. But trade ID, I would assume you have more options.
Trade ID with 40 characters, it's unlimited almost, right? Be like 40 factorial. I mean, there's no limit. So maybe that's a good point. Maybe if you're trading a large account, what if it's over $1 million account, but you got the Sosnoff approach and you want to keep everything small? That could be a lot of trades. You could have 40 trades on. Might be a good idea to use the trade ID. So hopefully it'll add a little bit of flexibility.
Well, the other thing is too, when you do a back test, you'll do more than 40 trades. You'll do over a period of time. You might do a couple hundred trades, and we always
well said.
Yeah.
And that being the case, if this isn't a live account and this is a back testing account, trade ID might be the way to go. So that was the major thing. I certainly, and it sounds like John wanted to bring up too, that this should add a little flexibility to your back testing, to your trading. Yeah, running out of letters and numbers could be another annoyance. And again, let's try to avoid the annoying things here.
Right. If you have a bunch of trade IDs and the trades overlap, I assume you can switch between them somehow.
Well, right. You don't have to stick to one trade ID either, but it's to signify also that it's all one campaign,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, is your point that maybe you're doing a broken wing butterfly in one campaign and something else in another?
Right.
That would
So
make sense.
I might have week 1 of SPX on, and I might have a week 2 of SPX, and I might have a week 3 of SPX, all still running at the same day.
Right. So let's see how they do. Plus comparisons. In the reports area, remember, what we were hoping was that in the reports area, I opened up an account for you guys, so I don't have anything in here, but remember, it'll graph your performance. It'll graph your analysis. You can look at different performance for the week 1, the week 2, and the week 3. Maybe that'll influence how you manage your trading plan. So that's
It
a good
may, but
point.
a lot of times their plan is to actually have those 3 trades on at the same time.
Okay, so that is the plan. So in that case, you can combine realized, unrealized. Of course, it's not realized till you're closing them, but those will be short trades, right? Well, week 1 could be really short,
Right.
5 days.
Yeah, if you put them all on at the same time. Yeah.
Right, so that would be one campaign, you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, this would help. Either it's one campaign, you can separate them, you have a little more flexibility. We just thought the letter deal was it's not cutting it anymore. And listening to you, I can tell it definitely wouldn't be cutting it.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't adequate. We had to fool around and kind of work around it by using a different accounts and stuff like that.
Breaking it up into multiple accounts. Yeah, that's what I always told people in the past. Hey, trying to work around. Hey, you can have any number of accounts. Don't worry about it. Just set up a butterfly account, a condor account, whatever. But this should help with that issue.
Okay,
So you
great.
can see
Now,
your returns.
we got a question that is, can you reuse the same R numbers or letters for each different trade ID?
Under the recon? Here
Yeah,
or
I mean,
reuse them here?
I would think
Yeah, once
about
you
using
close them,
the R's
it's
and O's.
over. Once I close this, the A's are gone. I can use them again.
Well,
Is that
yeah,
what you
right,
meant?
okay, but it's going to goof up your reports and everything later on, maybe.
That's the trade ID issue also.
Right.
I can
So
see a campaign 1. I can't, how many A's are going to show up when I start reusing it?
now, do we have to use the R column and the trade ID, or just use the trade ID and just kind of forget about the R column?
Yeah, please, my suggestion is at the moment, because I was asking Len about this, use it separate. If you're going to use the trade ID, just use the trade ID. And you just made a good point. You don't have to reuse a trade ID. It's pretty easy to manipulate 40 characters.
Yes.
And then you'll see how you did. I agree with you. I think it'd be a pain to have a bunch of 1s or 5s. They don't call in right away on it, but to your point, eventually they do. People do. Hey,
Yeah.
now I can't tell which A's, and yeah, I get it.
Yeah, okay. Super. Yeah, so that makes sense. And let's see, in a previous session there was mention of a feature where you could selectively enable and disable certain expirations to help with the symbol limit issue. Can you elaborate on that, and when will it be available?
The symbol limit issue, meaning like from Thinkorswim, the number of coming in at one time? Is this a data question?
I have to guess that. I don't know, Scott, if you can reword that. In a previous session, there was a mention of a feature where you could selectively enable or disable certain expirations to help with the symbol limit issue. And that is the question. Can you elaborate on it, and when will it be available? So I'm not exactly sure what.
Well, we can cut the number of expirations right now. I can take out all these weeklies, right? I mean, I can take stuff out right now if that was causing trouble. I get the feeling the question's more about, um, here's an example, quote view. We have 1,000 symbols coming in at a time. It's much faster, right? Thinkorswim, about 125, and to the previous person's question, 3-second delay.
Well, he says
So
we can't have
that's,
more than. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
yeah,
He says
I'm
we
sorry.
can't have more than 1,000 symbols with quote view, and he doesn't want to take out all the weeklies, which I don't blame him because they may be working, they may be functioning or doing weekly trades, so they need the weeklies,
Hmm.
but they don't want the 1,000 symbols necessarily coming in, or you can't have more than 1,000 symbols, right?
Yeah, on SPX, the Russell, NDX, it's slower. I mean, the fill-in takes, you could actually see it going slow. That, I think that's his point. I could run it by Len because, again, I read his recent things he's going to be working on. There wasn't anything really about data, but it's good to hear your guys' concerns because then, I can, we're a small company. I can go right to him, say,
Right. Well,
dude, you
see,
need to work on this.
the issue that we have right now, okay, is that we have traders who are trading multiple weekly cycles that are very far from expiration because now they're available in SPX. So, say somebody's trading a 70-day expiration weekly and they're in 4 different weeks. In order to actually get those on their analyze graph, they have to enable everything.
Meaning the whole option chain.
Right, they have to enable all the weeklies all the way for the last 80 days. So, or
So it
for
would
the
be
next.
nice to eliminate like all this if you're just trading out here somewhere. That's a
Right,
great
right, just
idea.
right, just enable your weeklies that are very far from expiration and just letting the other ones go. That way, your data can still come in relatively quickly.
And yet you don't have to go in and eliminate anything. I
Hmm.
will I will talk to him about that as soon as we hang up, actually. I love
Yeah,
that.
that would be a great benefit for a lot of us that are dealing with some of the speed issues in particular.
Yeah, and I bet he could do it with check boxes or something. So um, thank you. I will make a note and eliminate expirations, but it's for data, for data speed. Gee, now who's learning something? Okay.
Well, this is why we're here, because we have these things, and it's difficult sometimes to communicate them to you guys, because they say, oh, we'll just eliminate the weeklies. It's like, no, we're looking at weeklies that are 80 days to expiration now, and that's, we can't do that,
No,
right?
this is, yeah, exactly. This is wonderful. I think one of the issues going on in this society, we don't directly communicate much anymore, right? Maybe a quick email, a quick text. No, this is awesome. And like I said, I can walk right down there and talk to him and talk to Ken about it. And they meet every week. Every week they can talk about this stuff.
Right,
Anything
right.
else you have for me? It sounds like you guys have a lot of ideas.
Let's see here. I just have some questions, and I'm just going to go back up. We just have a lot of them, and I'm trying to either group them together or try to make them appropriate for what we're talking about here. Can you please explain net requirements, gross requirements, and cash flow, and how they relate to the left expiration line or total risk on the trade?
Yeah, it seems like we all get confused on the net requirements. Oh, I see I have this in here still. One thing, you guys, for this to come up for just this trade, keep in mind it's kind of regulated up here with these buttons for what net requirements and gross requirements. Um, you'll notice there's no gross requirements. The net requirement for this trade is $8,700. And then it'll automatically, as time goes on, be calculating how the trade's doing. That's the gain and loss. The cash flow is the total credit that's
Right.
going to come in.
I think one of the questions that comes in, and I had this too. I mean, sometimes those numbers do not seem accurate at all. So in other words, you look at the expiration graph and you'll see that your total risk is, say, $50,000 on a trade, and your net requirements might say something like, they're $110,000, or just some number that's completely wacky.
Yeah, and if that happens, here's something right now I see that shouldn't happen that we did bring up the other day, just so you all know. How can this go below the total net credit? Do you see the solid line here? Why are these lines going below here?
Well, do you have your button checks to change
Here
the
too.
level of the expiration graph? See, that's why. Because when you hit that button, the whole graph comes down. And
the whole graph got pushed down, but now T+0 is not going through it. I agree with that.
But I don't think that in particular.
But right now it's fine. It is 8,700. It's not off.
Right, but you start getting into complex spreads sometimes where you have
right. We start adding legs on here.
Split strike shorts or adding legs and stuff like that. Sometimes you get some pretty crazy numbers out of that.
Yeah. Again, when you guys see that, at least send Ken at OptionVue.com an email. Ken's one of our mentors. Andy's a tech guy. In this case, I think the risk is correct, but I have seen it off myself. I agree with you. And I get your point, John, about, well, it's because you pulled the T+0. You pulled this all down. Mm-hmm. I don't agree that should push it below what the total risk is. It shouldn't do it, and it does. Right. I don't know. It's something. It's already in front of Len, though, but it shouldn't be doing that.
I mean, it could be. I mean, O&E has the same issue. If they click that, it goes down underneath the expiration line, and I don't know if that's going to be that particularly easy to fix because you have to change the Greeks somewhere in order to do that. So.
Yeah, some of these things, evidently, programming-wise, aren't easy. I was with Sheridan for 5 years. I was here 9 years, Sheridan 5 years. Now I'm back here. So I was on one for 3 years. They started having troubles, but we'd email Andy for just exactly this kind of stuff. Hey, can you fix this to at least be in line because the students are catching it, and then it's I don't want to use the word infecting, but affecting their trading. So
right.
But this one Len is aware of. Another thing, I trade with Thinkorswim. They don't include commissions, so everyone I'm talking to either wants their commissions included or not. That's here under info. I'm sure you guys all know that.
Right.
And do you all know about the configure trade button too if you want to send trades over? You probably do. I don't send them over, but.
I don't either. I would prefer to make sure that they go in the way I want them to go in. So.
Thank you. That's exactly how I feel. I don't want these contracts being sent over to Thinkorswim from here. Trading's tough enough without it getting messed up on the execution platform, so I don't do it. Mm-hmm. But to those of you who wish both one and OptionVue were execution platforms, which they really can't be, by the way, we're not brokers, but you can send your contracts over there to Thinkorswim, and certainly to Tradier, if anyone's with Tradier.
Right. Okay, and let's see here. Let's see if we can get more questions here. Just a comment. This says, I want to give a very honest feedback. I'm a longtime OptionVue customer and just started using O&E. I found that O&E is much simpler to use and their reporting tools are awesome. OptionVue should learn from them and make things simpler for trade, log, and reporting. Also, O&E is much faster. No, that's someone's suggestion or just a comment.
That's a good comment, and they know I've been on both platforms. Here's the thing about Andy Mitchell, you guys. Him and Dan worked on that for a couple of years. It only went out to Sheridan students for a couple of years. Then it went out to the public. I personally love for my trading that the option chain, the risk graph, and the trade analysis were all on one screen. That was the thing I loved the most. That's why he created this side-by-side feature, just to try to be a little more competitive. But Andy's is already set up this way, right? You have it side-by-side automatically. So you say simplistic, well, that's because he's only worked on it for 4 years. Len's been adding things to this for 34 years. So part of it, this is the pushback from him, trying to get him, I wish he'd take some things out, to be honest, to make it easier or at least more user-friendly on some level, like you're describing.
Yeah.
So part of me
I mean,
certainly empathizes with the statement.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I think there are some things in OptionVue that I like much better than ONE, and one of them is the fact that I can look at just my matrix and I can look at just my analyzed graph, because it allows me to. I don't like looking at ONE analyzed graphs because they're too small, and there's really nothing I can do to make them larger. So.
Right, and every individual is going to have their own things, like you just described, that they feel strongly about. It's very politics, right? Trying to please everybody. I've been on both. I like the simplicity of Andy's. I didn't like dealing with the vowel issues, but now that it's kind of working, I'm sort of proud of all of you that were part of it. That smile model's everywhere. He doesn't have the same volatility, underneath those layers that this person brought up. So,
Right. I still believe that OptionVue has more predictable analytics as to where the market's going, as to where your profit and loss is going, which is one of the reasons I really like the platform, particularly if you get into any position where you're outside the 10. It tends to.
Yeah, and I don't know if you were part of it, but boy, that incorporating that vol crush, I trade calendars on earnings. That was awesome. If it was you and Brian or Len, whoever, that's great that it anticipates the vol crush.
Yeah.
So there's pluses and minuses to both systems is what it comes down to.
Right. I agree with that. And I mean, the biggest challenges I have with OptionVue, again, is that right now that data entry issue is just a pain in the butt when you're on a toss data feed. That's very challenging.
All right, I better bring that up right away then. But I will. I hear you. I didn't expect that. So.
Well, realistic for me, that's the biggest issue we have, because you're in here and you're in a position, you're trying to decide whether to adjust it, or you're trying to get an order together to get into a certain thing, and you really want to watch your Greeks, you want to watch the live data at the same time you're putting these adjustments in. You don't want to stop the data, put the adjustment in, start the data, stop the data, put the adjustment in, start the data. And then if you're doing it fast, you keep missing numbers, right? And you're already frustrated because you're already trying to make an adjustment, you're already irritated. It's got nothing to do necessarily with the software, but when you're already in that kind of mindset, and then you start having.
So did I hear you correctly? So you're suspending, you double click up on the globe and stop it because it's getting screwed up, and then you start it again, and then you stop it again? I gotta tell them that one.
Well, how else are you going to do it? Because I mean, you have to.
No, you're absolutely right. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I know I've talked to him about it, and I know he's aware of it, and he has all these things to make it better. But the reality is, it's a real problem. And not only is that data entry issue when you're actually entering in the matrix, but it's also even if you're making an account, for example. So if I want to make an account and my data's on, and I try to type in a name, it misses half the letters because, well, it has the same.
Are you running in, John? I'm hearing possibly that you're having that keyboard issue that's been coming up.
Yeah,
with
the
Todd?
keyboard issue.
Okay.
Yeah, the keyboard issue.
Yeah, he is aware of that one. We've had, not a lot, but we've had several phone calls, but I'm going to.
Well, I get it all the time from our people. When the hell are they going to fix this thing? It's just like, well, I don't know.
That is a huge one. I'll push him on it. He knows about it, but Len's He's a very nice guy, but he's kind of inward type person, and I think he gets back into his own world. And if I don't, not just me, if James and other people don't, you know what I mean, kind of push him a little bit
Right, right. Well, my
to
thing is,
the
the
higher
point to make
priority
him,
thing.
yeah, the point to make to him is it's fine when you're doing something casually, but when you're kind of in a hurry and you're trying to get things done, you're trying to figure out what adjustment to make, and you're trying to watch the live data, and you're already stressed out. I mean, you make mistakes easy enough as it is. To add that on top of it just adds another layer, and it can become very complicated.
Absolutely. I've had a couple of those calls, so I know the frustration you're talking about. What did one guy say? He's like, I keep hitting the key and it's not doing anything. I'm like, dude, I know what it is. Let me get you to Ken, and he'll help him at least get it working properly. But yeah, he's got to fix that. That's a big one.
Yeah, I think that is, and I know he's working on it.
Eliminated expirations, I had never heard. I love that idea, because I'll bet you he can do that quickly.
I would think so. I would think there's a way to change that formatting around, so you can maybe pick that, I want the week number 2 of February and the week number 4 of whatever, and then everything else just be whatever. Yep. I mean, it
Because
wasn't
it's
a problem 10
filters,
years
yeah.
ago, but now with the weeklies that are 80 or 90 days out, I mean, you can't, and you and you want to work on the ones that are way far from expiration. It makes it very challenging.
I hear you. I love that one. I'm not sure I would have heard that if you guys hadn't told me. Anything else? I probably should break off pretty soon myself, but
Well, let's
any
see.
other things?
Yeah, it just says the ability to look at multiple positions in graph is a big plus for OptionVue. Yeah, and another big plus for OptionVue too is if you have different expirations, it handles them better. Like if you have a March butterfly with a January call on it, OptionVue models that much better than O&E will model that. So that's another good thing.
Well, thank you.
And
That's good to hear. I know it's something popular. I don't know about in your group, but selling a weekly, buying a monthly, things, combinations like that. I think OptionVue handles that pretty well.
yeah, it does do that. Let me just see what else we have here for questions that might be relevant to what we have here. And if I missed your question, I'm sorry. I just have a whole bunch of them, and we went over some of them and not others. So I have limited, it just says I've limited the symbols to 125, and the delay when the market is busy is still way more than 3 seconds, which I'm not surprised.
Yeah, the 3-second delay, you have to go on Thinkorswim and change it. It's real easy. It's in the upper right-hand corner, but I agree. That whole thing's another annoying
Right.
factor.
Right. See, the weeklies seem not to come up if they're on Monday or Wednesday. I think you kind of addressed that.
Yeah,
And
Wednesday he is working on, the note he put out to us, the biggest issue was the E-minis. I don't know if any of your group would even trade those, but he's having trouble with
well,
Wednesdays on the E-minis.
yeah, we have a lot of people who are getting interested in E-mini, and you might want to let him know this. A lot of people are getting interested in E-mini options. So getting
Okay.
that straightened out might be beneficial for
Okay.
you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Particularly on the S&P, so the ESs.
Sure. That's what he's working on. I'm sharing it with you, but he was admitting he was having a hard time with it. That's all. So Wednesday expirations.
Well, they're adding stuff so fast, I'm sure it's challenging to stay up with it in the manner in which this is programmed. So,
Well, sometimes I'll share this with you. We've tried to get him, please do more beta testing. Please don't release things so fast. I don't know
right.
if he wants to appear productive or what it is, but he works hard, but, they need to be well tested before they're released.
Right. Yep. I agree. I agree. Especially if you can't revert backwards.
Well, yeah, that's what we all, especially your group, ran into. We couldn't revert back, and that was
Right.
brutal.
It
Um,
was. Yeah.
I don't, he won't go through that again because it was hard on him too. So yeah, I'm sure he doesn't want to go through that either.
Right. Let's see. I have a trial version, but I don't see the pink coloring. Is there a setting for this? He's referring to the matrix. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The standard deviation
Yeah.
column in the matrix.
I'll show them real quick here. It's up under settings and preferences and colors, graphic analysis, matrix. So with settings, preferences, the matrix, you got to make sure it's not a default. It probably should be. Not probably, it should be a default, but it's not checked. You got to go in and check it, click OK. Matrix shading on by default.
Okay, super. That answers that. Another thing which, if on the analyze graph, you have a T plus N box for the T plus 0 line. If you click it, that box moves around. The one that says T plus 8, T plus 12, T plus 6, T plus 0.
Oh, this?
Yeah. Yeah. We
you
have
know
had
what?
several requests to fix that in a certain position.
Yes, and I have too. I'd like to bring up two issues here real quick that maybe you guys, some of your people hadn't run into. Here's one. If you right-click anywhere on the graph, you can change the distance between numbers on the x-axis. You probably know that, right, John?
Right. It would be nice if we could fix those too, by the way, to say, hey, this is always 10 points, because it gives you a very false sense of security.
Across all assets? That's a good idea. I like that.
Well, no. As it comes close to expiration.
Well,
so
no, I mean, different
lines,
assets you're not going to want to be 6, right?
Right. But the other thing is, too, this asset here, like when I'm analyzing a graph and I get close to expiration, so those lines go to as narrow as $2 or $3, and it looks like I have this big, in other words, the position looks very safe, but the distance between the lines are $2 or something like that, and you have a lot of risk coming in there. And if you're not paying attention and resize that, then it can be very misleading. I know why he does it, but it would be nice if we had an option to fix that at maybe $10 or something like that, or whatever the trader wants.
Yeah, one thing I have always liked about this platform is the flexibility he at least tries to put into it. So I can bring that up, so you can, you feel that way, someone else might not. But yeah, that could be part of the settings. Like, please lock in these settings or whatever it is you want. So yeah, absolutely. The other thing I wanted to bring up, at least the people on trial bring up all the time, you are not locked into these dates here. You can right-click in here, change the dates to anything you want. And maybe some of you know that, maybe some of you don't, but be aware of it. I don't know. I was here in 2000, and I worked here a whole year before somebody told me that. I'm like, you mean the software doesn't decide? And that guy's like, why do you think that? I'm like, I don't know. No, you guys can change it to anything you want.
Right.
I want to, maybe that's something that's common in your group, but if you didn't know, I hope that helps. Yeah.
I think a lot of us probably know, but probably not everybody, because there's a lot of things I'm sure that I don't know, so that might be helpful.
Yeah, I went through, you can imagine, I come here in 2000. I'm starting to understand options better, but even in the videos, there's things that he, like you were saying, he comes out with these upgrades, and so many things happen at such speed, they're not updated, and they're things that you might not catch. So I hope some of these things help a little bit to talk about.
Right. Yeah. At least you guys know about it anyway. Regarding the trade button, actually, instead of sending to toss, it sends to a clipboard, so there must be another step somehow.
Yes, you got to click on the trade button to send it. You got to put the URL in here for Thinkorswim. But yeah, you're right. The next step after it's on the clipboard is to send it to send it over. It's the trade button.
I'm sure there's a way you have to set that up in the background, right?
Yeah, but it's easy. Once the trade comes up on the clipboard the person's talking about, you just send it. Unfortunately, you can't see it now because I don't have the URL in here, but it's real easy actually.
Right.
I just don't do it.
Okay. Right. Well, let's see. We've been going almost an hour. Let's see. One more question, or actually, this maybe two more. I think that maybe
Sure.
you might want to just look at quickly. And one is, can you set the denominator versus? Oh, so when we're looking at the analyzed graph, you know how you said we can set in a 10% profit, 10% loss, or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
these lines.
Can you make that can you set the denominator? In other words, can you set that to a number of planned capital? So one of the things we do is we have a trade that we might have $10,000 in, but we might have a planned capital for $50,000, and we want to make 10% of $50,000, not 10% of $10,000, right? So, so in other words, that if you put 10% in, it would be the same amount regardless of how much money was actually in the trade.
Yeah, right now it's only working with the money in the trade. That's a great question, though. Another good one. That's a good one.
Right, because if you do adjustments, the amount in the trade varies.
It's going to vary, right?
Right, and we're not necessarily changing our profit targets because that amount varies.
Right. We're just adding 3 calls or something here.
Right.
Well, now the amount of money in the trade changed. Plus, I bought long calls. Actually cost me money.
Right.
Okay.
Or maybe you could just put a dollar value in.
That would be good.
Yeah,
you'd have to be able to add and subtract the dollar value. I mean, it should do it automatically, though. We shouldn't have to do it. Software should do it.
Right. Well, you can say, I just want to make $1,400 on this trade, and I'm willing to lose $1,400, and you just kind of punch those numbers in, and it comes up on the graph. Would work too.
I'll ask about that one. I like that. You're right. I mean, this is going to vary. 10% of what? 15% of what? It might have already been thought out, but I will ask Ken about it. Objectives. Good question, by the way. Good question. Objectives with adjustments. I'm going to put to remind myself. Adjustments. Because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. It's going to change.
Right. Every time you do something, it changes. Yeah.
Right.
O&E has that challenge too, because they did the same thing. They put these percent lines on, but it doesn't really mean anything if you're in a dynamic trade like this.
Well, this was kind of a reverse engineering from them. I first saw it on O&E, and Len added it. So.
Right. It'd be easier if you
right now it's pretty easy when you're just doing a straight butterfly, a straight condor. But when you start adjusting, what numbers is it working with? So I'll find out.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And like I said, you could probably even just put a dollar value in there and say, give me a line of 2,800.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to manage it, I would think. Look, I want to make 1,400. That's my goal.
Right.
No matter what I'm adding or subtracting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You said you had one more, John, or?
Actually, you have more questions coming in. I'm assuming you probably need to get going here soon.
I'm sorry, I have to. I'm sales
No, that's
too,
perfectly fine. Oh, I know. Is it possible to see a maximum margin used during the life of the trade in any of the reports? That would be nice, right? Maximum margin used during the life of the trade.
I'll say this, not right now, but he did add portfolio margin, and you guys can set that up. You just got to check it down here. Otherwise, it uses these standard numbers for Reg T margins, but this is new. I'm sorry, I should have brought it up. It was between 8.1 and 12, but he added it. Otherwise, no, you can't. And I would not suggest manipulating Reg T numbers. Not a good idea.
No, but when you do a campaign, I think the point was that you start with $10,000. You might have had $20,000 in the trade, and I think the user just wanted to know if there was somewhere that you could tell that he actually had $20,000 in the trade at one point, like in the reports.
Under unrealized, it should, and not really. It's really, yes, it'll have theoretical prices, but not really, no.
I don't think there's a way to tell that the way things currently are.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, it's just I didn't know if you knew anything.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Right, and just a comment to have you navigate to that alert window once again, and then we can close up. How's that?
Sure. What I did was, just to say it out loud again, is I went to status. We have our trading here, and I right-click anywhere in here, doesn't matter, and this little window opens. And I left-click on Set Alert, and so we need a trigger. And then you get a lot of choices. I just always use a percent. To your point about specific numbers, the percent will be, it doesn't matter if I add legs, the percent will stay the same. So I put in a percent objective, but unfortunately, you're right, you start adding things, it's going to change it. And then I put a percent stop usually, but you can put in a price if you want. There's a lot of choices. It will not let you leave here unless you, by the way, it's you asked earlier, John, see how it's only when the market's open, when the data's coming in.
Right.
So it won't run after it's closed. And you check a couple boxes, whatever you want, and click OK. And it'll come up in your graphic analysis. And it'll flag you or email you automatically when it hits your stop or your gain.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. Well, I guess that's it. And I thank you for coming on and helping us communicate with Len, so maybe we can get some of this stuff done.
Yes, I really see your point. Other than instruction, this helps all of us communicate. And I don't want you guys frustrated, so I'm happy to communicate. No problem. I will share these things with Len and the tech team. And thank you for having me on. It was fun.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it was a good time. All right. Well, everybody have a great week trading. Thank you, Jeff. And we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.